Alrighty, guys. I am back on here. The Lord led me a couple of weeks ago to do prayers regarding suicide because suicide is something that continues to run rampant in this time, whether through on the internet or whether through in schools or families. So many people are struggling. So many people are ready to end it all. So many people have ended it, not just adults, but even teenagers and children and struggling, those who have been struggling with depression for so long. And even if you can't get on here and catch the scopes, I highly suggest you catch the replay and you share it with as many people as you can, because so many of us don't know there's so many people around us struggling with depression. So many people are wrestling, ready to end it all. The enemy is playing dirty in this hour, but you got to understand there's a purpose on the other side of the suicidal person. There's a purpose on the other side of that depressed purpose, and they need someone who's willing to help them to see that, hey, your life is worth living, that, hey, there's a reason to keep living. Not doing it in your own strength, but doing it in the strength and power and authority from God. Because everybody's not meant to take on suicide. That's not everybody's metron. That's not everybody's assignment. But coming from someone who had 3 suicide attempts all before the age of 21, I can really say that Satan plays dirty, that so many different experiences in life can cause you to just want to end it all. Or sometimes some of the words from people, from what I've experienced, some of the words from people can cause you to want to end it all. And that's why we have to be, hey Jocelyn, we have to be so careful of how and what we say to people, because we never know what we could trigger something in them. Even, okay, some of you may be right on a situation regarding someone may be wrong in how they've done you, but because of the state that they're in, because they're at a very fragile mental and emotional state right now, the wrong thing can set them off and set them over the edge and set off a chain of events that can not only hurt them but hurt others as well, and maybe even you. So you have to be careful and be led by the Holy Spirit and ask God how to speak to that person. It's not saying you excuse what's wrong, but sometimes every battle is not meant to be fought. Every battle is not meant to be fought. So you have to be understanding and cognizant of how to handle people in fragile states. And even if some of them just do it just to get attention, and yes, they may be wrong, but nevertheless, it's all still a cry for help. And even if you're not that one assigned to help them, that you just make sure you're not a stumbling block to them. You make sure that blood is not on your hands. So let me write something down real quick and I'll get started. How do you minister to a suicidal person while being sensitive? That's a very good question right there, because I think you really have to look at why they're suicidal. Now, if they're just suicidal because they feel like nobody loves them, nobody cares about them, because I've talked to some who are upset with God, yeah, that's another thing you'll find. A lot of them have just gotten frustrated with God and not fully understanding that it's not Him. So for those people, you got to understand, like, from one, what's the reason of suicide? Is it because of maybe a person, or is it because of a situation, or because of a word, or a temporary circumstances? Because you're finding some people commit suicide off of a temporary circumstance, something that they think is going to last forever, but it's temporary. And I think for them, just really sitting and talking to them, letting them talk for a moment, letting them get out what they have to say, and don't come at them in a judging kind of way. right, a breakup is on. Like, really make sure, you're in communication with them. I'm not saying force your way in totally, but let them know that your door is open, your phone is available. And also, just really, hey, Daniel Gordon 24, just really like providing a safe place for them. Right, especially when it comes to betrayal, like people dealing with suicide, like the fact that they haven't done it yet shows that they're still contemplating it. So really be a safe place for them. Really provide a place of safety and transparency where they can come and talk to you. Because oftentimes people with suicide, they don't really open that up with everybody. They don't share that with everybody. Yeah, you got some of the people that post that doing it for attention. Sometimes they do it, but they're coming from a place of rejection. But then you got those that hide behind it, those who smile behind the depression, those who are bubbly on the outside, but inside they're tired, they're worn out. And those are the ones you really have to pay attention to and look out to and continue to extend a hand to and reach out to and be in communication with them. Whenever God puts somebody on your mind to maybe check on, call, or you see them in the dream, like get on it. Yeah, we can pray, but if it's something reoccurring, then you might need to check up on them and call them. And like I said, it just depends on what situation that they're in, because everybody might not be on the far edge. The minister to a friend was suicidal. I feel the spirit of depression afterwards. Exactly. Yeah, they require so much being poured into. And some people, they're just in a phase in their life. Now, some people who really do clinically struggle with depression, see, yeah, it literally drained you. And see, we have to understand as people wanting to help them that they also have to want to help themselves. They also have to want to have the desire to live. That once you've done all that you can for them, it's up to them to also take that next step. Once you've given all the resources and the help and the answers, they have to be willing to take that next step. Because some people don't end up making it after we do provide the help, but we have to understand it's not our fault. It's not our fault. If you've done all you could to try to help them, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's just like pastors, spiritual leaders can only do so much for the people, but at the end of the day, the people have to put in some kind of work as well. And so for people who really dealing with clinical depression and struggling with suicide, they may need to go talk to a therapist. They may need to talk to a psychiatrist or psychologist and really sit down and deal with those different issues. And if medication is an outlet for some that can help them, if it can help some without any bad side effects, then so be it. Go ahead and go do that. Or better yet, go and check into a rehab. Go into an environment or a surrounding and setting that's going to be beneficial to your mental health. Now, I'm not saying checking into the new age, that whole yoga, like the whole Eastern theology traditions, Buddhism, Hinduism, I ain't talking about all that. I'm not talking about that type of stuff. I'm talking about getting in a healthy environment and even getting counseling, dealing with those different issues from your childhood. Because you don't wake up overnight and decide, hey, I want to kill myself, or hey, I want to commit suicide. You really need to get to the bottom of those origins and those roots with somebody who's professionally trained. And even if they might not be a Christian counselor, but if they happen to be a believer full of the Holy Ghost and they happen to be a counselor, that's a plus as well. That's a plus as well, because you don't want just everybody counseling you through a difficult season. So the point of the matter is, go for that person dealing with suicide. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to tell people, hey, I'm dealing with depression. Hey, this is what I'm dealing with. And if people don't believe you, then you go out and seek the help. You go out and find the people that you need. Even if you don't have a support system, there is somebody willing to help you and somebody willing to support you through this journey. So I hope I answered your question to the best of my capabilities, Jocelyn. I hope I kind of clarified that a little bit. If I didn't, just let me know where I need to explain myself a bit better. Okay, cool. Okay. Thank you, Holy Spirit. And another thing, some of us, we got to be careful of the music that we're listening to, because a lot of these artists, what brought you out of your situation, well, goodness. Well, what brought me out of my situation, honestly, I remember the third time and the last time where I was contemplating suicide, and I was going to do it. And the enemy planted the thought inside my head to asphyxiate myself, basically to, put like a bag over my head and suffocate myself. That's what he gave me to do. He's like, oh, it'll be over before you know it. It won't hurt. It won't be painful, and none of that. Like, I really heard that in my head. And so what I did, I ended up calling at that time the TBN. I called their prayer line, and somebody prayed with me. And I think for me, just after that moment, when I realized, okay, hey, I had a reason to live, I didn't do it anymore. And now, don't get me wrong, when different attacks do come, Satan will try to put that back in my mind through other different outlets and ways, and I have to constantly shut that down and renew my mind. About that last suicide attempt, a couple of friends knew. Now, my first one, like how I got found out was my teacher. I wrote a letter to one of my classmates, and she gave it to my biology teacher in 9th grade, and she called a meeting, and she called my mom and her and 2 teachers. Hey, Thick and Vivacious, and they talked to my mom and showed her that I wanted to overdose on like liquid medication. I'm good. How are you? We're on here. I'm about to do some prayers regarding suicide, any situations regarding suicide. If you know anyone on here who may be struggling with depression or suicide, invite your followers and share it on Facebook. Oh, that's good to hear. So yeah, Jocelyn, that's how it kind of happened with me. But I think for me, I just realized, like, hey, I have a reason to live. Wow, you struggle with depression sometimes. Well, you're in good company today. You are in good company. You're going to get what you need today. Like, struggling with depression, eating my life away, not having the right support system around me, just constantly getting talked down to. I didn't think I had a reason to live. I didn't think I have a reason to rise above that. But as I got older and I realized that, hey, it must be a reason why. Your service keeps messing up. I'll keep breaking up. Okay. If my connection is bothering up, you could try to come out and come back in. But yeah, like, I'm sorry, my thoughts all over the place. I'm just trying to regroup. But when I realized that I had a purpose and that it was a reason why the devil didn't want me alive, and I was just like, no, I'm not going to give him the satisfaction. I'm not going to spend all eternity with you to try to get away from a temporary problem that's not always going to last. I'm not going to give him the satisfaction. I don't want to spend eternity with Satan. I don't like him. I hate Satan. I don't have friends here. It's okay. Thinking Vivacious. What's your name, by the way? What's your name? Crystal Curry? Okay, Crystal. I definitely understand how you feel. I don't trust females either. Yeah, I've been there too. But you'll find that being constantly in the company of guys, they're not able to give you what you need. And I say that because a lot of my friends, I hung out with a lot of guys, because pretty much every female friend I was friends with, we fell out over something crazy, or I got backstabbed in some way, shape, or form. So I understand how you feel. But what I realized, Sharman Dumas, who spoke at the Millions Conference, he said something so profound. He said one of the reasons why a lot of you women say, I don't have female friends, is maybe because you're trying to run away from your mother. It was maybe different traits of your mother that were toxic or stressful and draining to you, and you didn't want to find another friend who was like your mama. And that's when I heard that, that was like, oh my gosh, because don't get me wrong, I love my mother. She's a great woman, but it's just certain things and certain attitudes that she's had, and it's been very draining over the years. Your husband is like, oh, see, yeah. And that's why you gotta learn, like, you gotta renounce that stuff. You gotta decree and break that stuff and say, I renounce every word curse my mother and my father ever spoke over me. I renounce them saying that I'll never be nothing. I renounce them saying that, yeah, oh, no doubt that you love him. No doubt. But have you guys ever maybe thought about moving? The question just came to mind, but have you guys ever thought about maybe like moving to either another city or another state? Because sometimes when you feel like you're not around people, you're not around like-minded people, it's not that they're not out there, but maybe you're just not in the area that you live in. Kansas City, okay. Maybe, oh, you're from Omaha, Nebraska, okay. Maybe you're just not in the area that you need to be. It's not that those people aren't there, but maybe you're not in the area that you need to be in, and just continue to keep asking God to send you those women who you need to be around. But until then, ask God to show you, anything in you. But God can send people, right? Ask him to show anything that's in you that might keep you from bringing in close friendships. Nah, you can't give up hope though, because there are people out there. That's what the enemy wants you to do, because it's power when women connect up and link up together. Because Crystal, let me tell you, yes, you love your husband, and yes, y'all may be close, but it's some connections that you're gonna have to have with other women. And yeah, I know you say you got that strong attitude, but sometimes it's just knowing that even though that someone may not look like you, someone may sound different from you, or may come from a different place where you've been, but if that person's assigned to your season, God knows what he's doing. And just allow God to show you those things and attitudes that may keep you. Hey, Lily is the name. Ask God to show you anything that's in you that's blocking the right connections, whether it's other people, hey, whether it's certain attitudes. Okay. Okay, how about I come out and I come back in and do part 2 real quick to see if the connection will get better. Hold on, y'all. I promise y'all I'll be right back. So y'all just hop back right on. I promise y'all I will be right back.